I can't hear you. Can you? Is your microphone on? I can't hear you, Mr. Mayor.
Can you
Can you
hear?
hear me? Say it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay, great.
All right, former Irvington, New Jersey Mayor Wayne Smith, you making me look bad, Mr. Mayor. It's not even 1 o'clock. It's only 12:57, and you here early. What's up? You know I went on CPT time. What's good?
Well, I always say if you're not early, you're late. So that's just an operating
You
principle I have.
know, but yes, I know. Look at you over Silver Fox. You look good there, young man. You know
Well,
that
thank
black
you, sir.
don't crack stuff is real.
I got some breaking news for you. I figure I'd use your platform to break some news today.
Listen, you know I like the new stuff, right? But before you break it, introduce yourself to put it in context so that
Okay.
when you break it, everybody
My,
knows it's coming from a reliable source, not some crackpot dude.
my,
So
my,
introduce yourself.
my name is Wayne Smith. I am the president and CEO of Wayne Smith and Associates. As Chris said, former mayor of Irvington, New Jersey, former president of the New Jersey Urban Mayors Association. And my business has a consulting practice that deals in urban development, marketing, public relation, and governmental relations. Um, so it's interesting. As part of my practice, I have some breaking news. We're embarking on a new project, and I hope to have you uh, have the young lady I'm about to talk about on your show. Her name
Really?
is Jamila Muhammad. She's the president and CEO of Rising Plains LLC, a real estate developer who I've known since she was a young girl. I used to work for her father as a young man, and I'm sharing this because in business as in life, relationships matter, social capital matters, all those things that brings fortunate things into your life matter. So we're going to use this as a teaching moment. So I knew her father. I worked for her father as a young man, as a teenager in high school. He's a consummate entrepreneur.
Mhm.
She followed her father in the real estate business, and I'll get more into that in 1 second.
Mhm.
But he was in the restaurant business. He was in the oil business. Just an outstanding man. Taught me a lot, as a quiet mentor, and gave me the kind of entrepreneurial bug. But my work with her actually started during my time as mayor. She developed a property on 16th Avenue, right across the street from INIC, which is the Irvington Neighborhood Improvement Corporation. That name for that, not for our social service agencies, which still exist in Irvington, actually came when I was working for former Mayor Mike Steele, who is now deceased.
Mhm.
Uh, we had some money, some social service money in the county when former Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver was a deputy county administrator, and we had to create an agency. So we did, and we put it under the mayor's office. And so uh, we kind of stole a chapter from Dr. King's Montgomery Improvement Association. We called it the Irvington Neighborhood Improvement Association. It is the anti-poverty agency for the city of Newark. Its mission is to relieve poverty and help uh, with those issues, at social service issues. So right across the street from that agency on 16th Avenue is a building that was in great need of repair, and she acquired the building. We were able to provide her with some community development block grant funds, and they did some apartments on top and the daycare center at the bottom. The daycare center still exists to this very day.
So she's been in business since you were the mayor.
Well, she was probably in business with her father, helping him with the oil company and the real estate, because her father was a real estate broker.
I'm talking about at that location on
Yeah,
16th
that
Avenue.
that was her first development.
All
Uh,
right, and please put that in context for what year was that? Also, when you mentioned you were the former mayor, what years were you the mayor?
I was mayor
And
from
how many times?
2014. I served 3 terms. I was the first mayor in Irvington's history to ever serve 3 terms. Um, Now, my predecessor has broken that record with 4 terms. So, but I was the first mayor to hit 3 terms. It was in that time period It was probably my third year, might have been the beginning of my second term. But she went on to do some other development in Newark, some small developments in Newark. And then when I left the mayor's office, she asked me to consult with her as she was embarking on a much bigger project in Newark. She uh, developed several properties in the West Ward of Newark, and worked with her on some of that. And okay, and but two of the significant projects, I can't keep this
They
thing.
keep slipping.
The two significant projects that came out of it, and thanks to the Barack administration and Councilman Dupree Kelly, some people know him as Do It All, we were able to get a nice significant size lots after she developed a few, more than a few, several two-family houses in the West Ward of Newark. We're now under construction of a 17-unit, all affordable, on South 16th Street, right off of South Orange Avenue. We had the groundbreaking a few months ago, and
That's
we're
in Newark.
in Newark, and we're actively under construction. But we're announcing a new project today, and I actually hope you'll have her come on at some point in the near future to talk about the things that she's done and the things that we're doing now. But we have a new project called The Point on Bergen Street and Rose Terrace. It's called the Point at Bergen and Rose. And if anybody knows that area, it's the Central Ward of Newark. It's right across the street from a major senior citizen complex called J.C. White Manor. And it's going to be home ownership opportunities for the development we're about to do there. We have a community meeting on September 19th at Congregational Baptist Church, which is right up the street. And so we're just so you get you this is the first time we're going public. We got our pre-development money on this particular project from the New Jersey Economic Development Corporation. And we're just getting the word out. So anybody who might be interested in a home ownership project, we'll have, September, we'll have the renderings, and, we'll begin to talk to people about, what the construction schedule looks like and what kind of houses they will be. But we're in the pre-development stage now. As I said, some of the pre-development costs were advanced to us by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And if you're not familiar with that, it's the major economic engine for the state of New Jersey. They try to strike up economic activity. So though this is a housing project, housing is probably the prime driver of all economic opportunity in any community. So we were fortunate to get some pre-development money for this particular project to move forward. And we're doing, we're beginning our community outreach efforts about the project as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. I think I'd take this conversation as an opportunity to get that word out. And again, when you send me the clip of our interview, I'll make sure that it gets around the at least around the county.
Oh, no, I'll chop that up. But listen, that's what we call a shameless plug, Mr. Mayor. And once again, as I always tell you, you hear it, you want to hear it all the time. Anybody who knows and they talk with you, I always say you got it. And yes, that is part of it. That was a nice shameless plug, nice and seamless shameless plug. I want to see a few things of what you said, though, because like I said, when you talk, you say so many different things, right? And they stick out to me, and I want to break them down for that. I don't say the layman, but whoever my audience, right? Because you're, as I've said before, I believe I told you, and I'm sure being a municipal leader and also a leader in a Black community, which is a thing in and of itself. A lot of people don't understand how government works. They live in it, they work in it, they pay taxes, but they don't really understand how things work. And so when you're explaining things, people hear it and they don't go, in the perfect world, like in education, you tell people if you don't know, ask a question. But nobody wants to seem stupid, so they never want to ask, right? They go, oh, I understand. No, you don't, right? And but that's one of the reasons why I got to do it. But I want to say a couple of things. One, when you were talking about the current mayor, Tony Valls, NTV, I think he's in his fourth term now, and you said predecessor. No, predecessor means before. So I'm an English major, so I'm going to correct your grammar.
Successor, you're absolutely
yes. I'm going to correct your grammar, Mr. It.
I I was the predecessor.
Yes. And also, and I wanted to say that because I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to, I like MTV. He's all right with me. I ain't got no beef with him, really. Right. Uh, but I hesitate to call me a successor because when I think of successor, I always think of like moving on, moving up, better, more improved. And I did not that he's not doing a good job. But once again, it's kind of hard to follow a class act, right? And it's like the guy who comes after whoever is always going to have the shadow of the other guy. So I hesitate with the word successor. So I would not have said that. I would say the guy who came after you personally.
Yeah.
All right, because like
Well,
you said,
listen,
because to me, you're
listen.
always going to be Mayor Smith, Wayne Smith.
Yeah, I will say this, and
Say that again.
I will say this. One of the things I say to all of the, they're young to me, young elected officials out there. It is a tough job. Sometimes it can be very, very thankless. And one thing I do enjoy about the private sector is you get to do some things in private, not under the microphone for everything you
And
do say. So
listen, and that is also an example of because you're 100% right. Private and public is two different beasts, right? And that's another distinction that a lot of people don't understand, right? When you're in the public eye, public office holder, it's like it's fair game. But when I'm private, hey, it's private. It's none of your business. Leave me alone. So I respect that too. But
and
I
so
was also thinking,
I've had the
sorry.
fortune of being engaged in both processes. So, I was always thankful to the voters who allowed me to serve the period I served in the public sector and to try to take on the enormous challenges of public life. But also there's some great privileges and opportunity in the private sector as well.
It got perks. It got perks, right? Right. One of the perks is not having to answer them questions for me.
Oh,
absolutely.
Absolutely. And you never totally leave it. You just you just serve in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I wanted to say too, because you also mentioned what is her name again? The young lady you were
Muhammad.
What is it?
Jamila Muhammad.
J-A-1-L or 2-L in Jamila?
It's 1-L.
Okay, because there's a council president, Jamila Beasley you know about.
Yeah,
Beasley
sure.
McCoy. But I just want to say that. But when you were talking about helping out Ms. Muhammad, I was thinking also you got a track record of empowering Black business women, huh, Mr. Mayor? We talk about consulting work because you mentioned helping Adino Bio.
Yeah. And
get started, and now here you are again helping a Black woman.
And
why are you so nice to these Black ladies?
Yes, listen, I stay in touch with Dina, and hopefully, we may be working on something else that if it works out, I will let you know all about it.
No doubt. She got a little bit of trouble on social media, right? This kid posted a thing saying that because she owned the IHOP, and she's like social senior citizens eat free on some day or whatever. So this group of senior citizens rolled up in there to eat free. But then as they was eating free, they go on, you sell a senior citizen free, you know what that means, right? They go eating with their mama, right? And so they went up there, they eating hard and good. But then at the end, they thinking it's free and they get presented with a bill and they go, wait a minute, we senior citizens, why we get the bill? And the guys goes, oh, that's only you got to order orange juice or something. If you didn't order orange juice, you didn't order like something different with the meal, then it doesn't come. And they was like, what? And so this kid got on social media and he was advocating for the seniors going, what's going on? But so I saw this, I took a clip, but I took the link, I sent it to Adina Bio. She's like, oh yeah, I heard about this. We took care of that. Don't worry about that.
Well, yeah, I would think that she would. I think she's very responsive to the community. So I would think she would address that. That's the challenge of being in business. You have situations that come up. You learn every day from the mistakes that you make, and you get a chance to, hopefully correct it in the public's mind and even in the private sector, which most businesses are privately owned. And so, they're not, no human being is ever perfect. We make our share of mistakes. But the good thing about it is if you have the opportunity every day to correct the mistakes we make and move on.
See, I like that because what I just heard you say is perfection is a process and a goal. We ain't perfect, but we always try to get there. We in the process of trying to make it happen, do the best we can, right?
We strive for perfection, but none of us are going to be perfect.
I hear that. And so then I was also thinking, you mentioned the housing that Miss Muhammad is developing is going to be affordable housing. The units are going to be affordable housing, and I want to really not hammer that point with you, but I really want you to elaborate because once again, I've given you credit because I look around in Harrison and Jersey City and all the other places, Orange, all these places that are doing what you and Wayne Bradley, in my opinion, pioneered in the East Ward over there. All the stuff that's happening with all these New York expats and whatever moving over here. That's all something that you guys saw before it happened and were preparing for and we're trying to tap into it before it's become what it's become now. Because now it's just like everyday thing. And
Oh
so,
yeah, no doubt about it. The real estate market in the Essex County is growing due to the explosion that we saw coming from New York because of the high cost of living in New York City. Right now, the whole conversation, at least when I hear public officials around the United States talk, they talk about affordability. And the number one challenge is always housing. And so as the government tries to address that, one of the things that we saw is that there were two mantras going on at the same time. One is as we tried to stabilize our housing market and bring in more development, we knew New Yorkers were going to be our client. Even you look at what happened at the big development on Marshall Street, that was filled up. A lot of New Yorkers moved in there because the cost of rents there were reasonable compared to New York City. But part of it is looking what happened after 9/11 in New York and in Jersey City. Jersey City was the first vanguard that began to become. In fact, they call Jersey City now the sixth borough of New York.
oh yeah. I want to get back to that because I went to college in Jersey City. I like Jersey City, live in Jersey City. I don't want to hear that New York borough crap. But go ahead.
but that's what they say because so many New Yorkers came over. Many of the executives moved over as a result of what happened at the World Trade Center, and we saw that trend. Make God make Wayne Bradley's grave spacious because Wayne was a planner, a licensed planner, one of the few African Americans who was a licensed planner in that profession. Saw it from a standpoint as a planning professional that we had the opportunity to maximize what was going to happen over time. And when we were saying it, some people thought we were a little kooky, but as time they began to see it, it happened throughout the region, and that's still happening because the housing. You were one of them, right?
Yeah, I have to raise my hand because I don't know if you remember, but I distinctly remember going, "What?
Yeah,
What
no,
are you talking about?"
We were a little ahead of ourselves, but it's interesting. If I look at that history, we had before the recession, from 2002 to 2006, we
What
had
year was the recession? Let's put it in context because you got a lot of these young kids.
the beginning of 2006, 2007, as my first term was ending and my second term was beginning. We had explosive growth in my first term and maybe the first year of my second term. Property values went up 30%. A lot of the homeowners whose property values were artificially suppressed, people took the opportunity to sell at prices where they made money. And those who wanted to go back south, a lot of our people came, wanted to go return to the South. And then some people who were from the Caribbean sold their houses and moved back home to the Caribbean or whatever. And so we saw that explosive growth, and we also saw an influx of new residents, some of them from Europe. So that trend is continuing. I mean, if you look at the explosive growth in Newark, I talked about the development that Jamila is doing, and it's in Newark. Now, when we talk about affordable, there's a big debate going on in the region, and I know I'm, I don't. The elected officials have a huge challenge today to meet that because there's a difference between affordable housing and low income housing.
Facts.
You know,
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor, go ahead, because because then
age,
there's affordable, there's income, then there's market rate.
that is the major problem that national, and we're in trouble with the Trump administration because they don't have that on their radar at all. They don't. I don't think it's a concern of theirs. But for state level and city level officials, is a major concern because affordable housing means you have to have a stable income. Generally, you have to be in a certain medium range of the metropolitan statistical area, which we're part of the New York City
Yep.
metropolitan statistical area, which means our medium income, it might be a little higher than people think it is. And so when you say
Yep.
affordable, talk about working class income, it's not a low income at all. So the
Nope.
challenge is for uh, people who have not done as well or in the low income category. That's the challenge of housing. So that's where you see people saying, and they may be working every day at
Yep.
some job, but it's just that the wages are not sufficient enough where they can afford the high rental costs today. So affordable housing helps some people, but I think
Mhm.
I see the major crisis in low income housing. And so when you look at homeless populations, and so part of the public debate today, as I see it, um, is there are a couple of things that you don't see a lot of discussion about, and on most levels, there's no conversation about the poor. So we went
Nope.
from President Johnson having a war on poverty to poverty is just not in the public conversation. And most people, and when you look at public discourse today, we talk about the middle class, and the middle class has its struggles because we're generally typically wedged in,
Yep.
um, and trying to either help our parents' generation or trying to meet these high housing costs ourselves, whether we're sending our kids to school or trying to meet healthcare costs or whatever that is. It's a struggle,
Yep.
but whatever our struggles are, a person who is making less and has less economic fortunes, that's where the housing problem really is. So people are tripling up, not doubling up. I used to say double up. Two families living in one apartment, whatever. They're tripling up now, and the homelessness crisis is critical. So people complain about how certain areas look in any particular town, or and they're major cities, not just small cities like we live around, but major cities have these homeless problems as well.
Well, New
And
York is a
even
major city. I mean,
capital, in the
mhm.
nation's capital, it is homeless problems. So it is a challenge. Where do low income people fit in the scheme of things? And that's where the debate has to shift. What do we do and how do we handle people who have not had the advantages of this economy that other people have had? And so but I tremble when I don't hear any public discourse. The other thing that I don't hear a lot about, and mayors have to end up swimming on their own because there's nobody talking specifically about urban policy except mayors,
Yep.
because they have to govern in those cities. But from a national plan, some governors are on point about knowing that the urban centers can drive because they have all the corridors already in place, but not a heavy emphasis on that, you
Nope.
know, urban policy or poverty. So, hopefully we'll get to that with some enlightened elected officials. Maybe the midterms will bring us some hope, and
Oh
we'll
no,
see.
listen. Once again, to me, you say once again, you say a lot of stuff, and I want to break it down. I want to go back to well, first off, when we talk about urban, I remember former East Orange Mayor Lester Taylor. His ambitious thing was he wanted to rebrand urban. He wanted to change the meaning of urban because, as you know, when you say urban, there's a lot of connotations that come with it, and a lot of and especially in recent years. And so his one part of his agenda when he was mayor of East Orange was I want to redefine what urban means, but generally urban means like New York City, populations, immigrants, cities,
Right.
uh, type issues.
Mm-hmm.
Then also you mentioned early on, you talked about in terms of Irvington, how when your first term, homeowners could see the real value of their homes after having been suppressed. I want you to elaborate on that because what does that suppressed mean?
Well, so what happens is there's a lot of factors that that impact particularly urban areas. So
Because it sounds
historic.
like redlining or something.
Oh yeah, well, some of that's part of that discussion, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to get into the whole question of how people view the value of homes based on who lives in them.
Yep.
And so there's been a number of cases where appraisers, your house could be sitting in one town and be just comparable to a place in another town, and the value of the houses will be viewed hundreds of thousands difference. They've even went more. You could be in the same area, and the complexion of the people make a difference. And so, they had to put a microscope in on the appraisal profession about this.
Mm-hmm.
There was blatant racism regarding how appraisals were performed. And then there's also the financial impacts of who gets investment in your community or not. The Community Reinvestment Act is a very important tool which tries to force the hands of banks to invest in neighborhoods that they're located. But the financial world has changed around us. Used to be where a bank branch is, but bank branches don't have to be in the community to get your money. With all
Facts.
online scenarios, financial institutions now, they don't have the same obligation, but our money is going into those institutions. There's
Mm-hmm.
some reciprocal relationship where investment is made back into the communities. And then one of my heroes who passed, who used to have his microscope set on this very issue when you talk about capital accumulation and where money is invested and where your money is invested, is public pension funds.
Yep.
How much of those public pension funds that police, fire, teachers, municipal workers actually getting reinvested back into the communities in which they earned that money from?
Yep.
So these are larger questions sometimes that Reverend Jesse Jackson, God rest his soul, was immensely uh, uh, would challenge that. And the other significant part of that whole equation is, we now have people who are very competent enough to invest some of those pension funds. Who gets an opportunity to invest that? Do Black and Latino professionals who have the ability to invest our funds and might look at our communities differently? Are they engaged in that process? So these are some of the questions they've been ongoing questions by some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I say Reverend Jackson was a big one. And I just take opportunity to share a
It's
small
okay.
about Reverend Jackson and how he
Uh,
impacted my.
you got to remember, is it Reverend Jesse Jackson? Because there was also a Reverend Jackson up in
Oh
Orange
yeah,
too.
well, Reggie Jackson, Bishop Jackson was a powerhouse too, a good friend.
Yes.
But Reverend Jesse Jackson, who ran Operation Push, played a significant role in a business organization that I worked for. So in Harlem, I used to work. A lot of people don't know this. In the '80s, I worked for an African American owned life insurance company called United Mutual Life. We
Mm-hmm.
owned a whole block on Lenox Avenue between 125th and 126th.
Mm-hmm.
We were a block away from Sylvia's. I used to eat breakfast there every morning.
Nice.
Around the corner, years later, Bill Clinton established his foundation office there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time when I worked there in the '80s, there was United Mutual Life. There was Freedom National Bank. People don't know about Freedom National Bank, but it was founded by Jackie Robinson, who integrated Major League Baseball. And then there was another, that was a Black-owned institution. And then right around the corner from us on 125th was Carver Freedom. Carver is still active. It still services a predominantly Black community, but I believe it is not Black-owned anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And United Mutual, after I left sometime around about 83, 84, about 84, I left, 84, 85, it ended up being taken over by Money, Mutual of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but at that time, working for them, got us involved with, I was assistant director of marketing. And I suggested to our president and my boss, Mike Sanders, that we join Reverend Jesse Jackson's Push International Trade Bureau. He was brokering deals. He called them covenants with corporate America for black firms, whether they were insurance,
Mac, I
investment.
want to interrupt your story a little bit.
Uh,
I'm smiling, right? Because Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jackson, Jesse Jackson, he gets a lot of flack, because in the black community in the 70s and the counter revolution and the black power, this, you got the poverty pimps and you got the other guys and these other guys, who who were criticized for Lincoln economics and the freedom and equality movement. But as even Dr. not even say even Dr. King, but that was once you get the actual chains off you and the shackles and restrictions off you, the next step in the capitalist society is economic empowerment. But Jesse Jackson got a lot of credit for that because people say that he was out there just trying to shake down these corporations. But you were just saying it wasn't a shakedown.
no. So I'll go back to the conversation about economic reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
Economic reciprocity is we are market share as a community, and he was able to make that correlation. If we spend our dollars, I mean, I'll tell you some of this stuff related even back because he was obviously one of the disciples of Dr. King. He was given Operation Breadbasket, the relationship between our economic power, what we spend.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole discussion is going on right now with Target.
Yep.
If we spend X number of dollars with you, we should see some return in employment and contracts, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, at the aftermath of George Floyd, you have many corporations try to say, okay, we've got to balance the scale. And one of the ways you balance the scale is through economics. Jesse was one of the first to take the debate from just civil rights to silver rights. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was no shakedown. It was not welfare, but it was our share. Wasn't uh, social generosity, but economic reciprocity. Because when you look at the margin of profit, and that's what I used to do as mayor, it very much relates to, and mayors have this challenge, particularly African American mayors in urban cities. Many times, our people are the margin of profit for many brands in America. And
Whether we know it or not.
yeah, listen, and even though economically we're not supposed to have it based on our economics, we buy brand name this and brand name that. We have every sneaker and whatever the latest fashion is, we got it and we pay the money for it. So I used to tell retailers that when they said the first thing they do when they look at a city, what is the disposable income of the resident?
Yep.
And I would say, okay, fine. There's always a middle and higher income, and that might be small in terms of the larger population. But our people spend a significant amount of money. And I'll give you an example. The fast food operations in places in urban centers, they're everywhere because they know black consumers spend money. People say, why do they locate here? Why do they? Because we buy the stuff.
Yep.
We buy.
And this, I want to interrupt you and say, that's what I learned being journalism. Corporations and businesses, they do their homework. If they're coming and setting up shop, if Taco Bell want to open up over there, that's because they've done their research and said, if we put a store there, we want to make some money there. It's not like
There's a miss site that they miss because they say, oh, well, it's not enough income there. I said, no, that's not true. You put a store there, you will see. In fact, if we can't get to the mall, we can. Some of our people manage to get to the mall, whether it's by bus or car or they carpool. They get to the mall, and we are the margin of profit. So why should we have to spend that transportation cost? Put the store. I mean, I used to go to the International Council on Shopping Centers. They have them all over the country, and I would only go to the one in New York because I didn't want to spend that kind of money going to Vegas, and to me it didn't look right. but I would
Mhm.
always go to the one in New York because I could get on the 107 and go to that if I had to. Or
The 107 is a bus.
so the expense was minimal to go there, but you met the major retailers, and as you try to recruit, I remember you talk about Adina. We had to sell IHOP to come to Irvington, and so what happened is when their people came, they looked at Springfield Avenue with the traffic. They said, "Oh wow, this," because they want to be generally by highways.
Yep.
And the Newark store broke some new ground for them. Obviously, they saw an urban market, and then they also, and when you talk about corporations looking at the needs or desires or what the community wants, those IHOPs, Adina's, and the one on Bergen. Well, Adina owns the one on Bergen Street now. She didn't when it opened, but
Mm-hmm.
it's that one now as well. Um, they were the first to serve soul food
Mm-hmm.
on the menu because of the local population. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of corporate insight that more of them need to bring. And I say that because when they look at disposable income, it is not the barometer. They have to determine where do their sales, and they know that. They know where
Yep.
their sales come from, but they won't put a store in the location where their sales come from. There's some other reasons that are factors in that, but we have to make the case that we spend our dollars, and some of this is smart consumers. We have to be better consumers so that we marshal our dollars and use the leverage. So that's what Reverend Jackson was trying to do. He was
Mm-hmm.
trying to leverage our economic might, which many people are trying to do today. I use the Target situation as one scenario that's more current, but
Mm-hmm.
that's important. That's going to be important to our future that we leverage our dollars
Yes.
um, to
Well,
those who.
I mentioned that because, like I said, you see, this is what I mean about visionary and leadership, right? And seeing it before it actually happens, beginning to predict and say, oh, this is what it's going to be, the trends or what's trending this or where it's going, like you and Wayne Bradley did, like Jesse Jackson did, like Dr. King did. Like I said, once you actually, get the whole oppression, the obvious oppression of Jim Crow stuff off, then you got a, lifestyle, quality of life, that's jobs, income, money, right? And so, like you said, you got to spend it. So Jesse Jackson, like I said, he got a lot of criticism for that, in my opinion. Because I was one of them too for a
Got
minute until I understood.
the criticism came from those who did not want to share in the economic wealth. It didn't come from our people. And I
Yeah.
will tell you this, Jesse has made a tremendous impact with Black business people and some of our more significant Black businesses because of his advocacy. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you go to the Black Enterprise 100 during his time and talk to the CEOs of those companies, which don't equal one Fortune 500 company, by the way, all Black Enterprise 100 together don't equal one Fortune.
Yes.
They will tell you though that Reverend Jackson made a tremendous amount of difference, and I got a chance to see that. We end up getting a contract from Ublind because of his effort. Ublind, people don't. It was a conglomerate at the time
Mm-hmm.
that owned KFC,
Mm-hmm.
they owned Smirnoff Vodka, and a few other companies. And our the Black economic buying power of those brands are tremendous. And so
Yes.
we ended up getting an insurance deal with them through Reverend Jackson. It was a great deal. We had a major press conference about that particular deal being struck, and I had to go out to Chicago. I had to woe the Jackson staff, and we ended up with the deal. And it was in '83 that we signed that deal. And so one of Jesse's communications people, who's now Reverend, I think Reverend Watkins died. Um, he was his communications guy. He was talking to me at the Harlem State Office Building. He said, "Have you heard about the proposition?" I said, "What proposition?" Well, at that time, you remember the Gallup poll? The Gallup poll,
Uh-huh.
Gallup poll, where Jesse was rated one of the most popular men in America, black or white.
Mm-hmm.
So they took that poll and they floated the idea of him running for president. And then, of course, they had a series of meetings and so, but they were ready to announce. So at that time, I wasn't that visionary enough to see. I was young. I said, "Say what?" He said, "He said Reverend Jackson gonna run for president." I said, "Okay." And of
Now
course,
listen, Mr. Mayor, I really see, once again, you see, you drop gems, and this is what I want to mean. And this is a part of the problem currently with the current Democratic Party being in disarray, in my opinion, right?
mhm.
Like you said, they don't make these decisions about who to run. They didn't just pick Barack. They didn't reach into a hat like this and say, pull out Barack Obama. This is all the end of a vetting process. These people have been looked at, they've been run through, they've been crunching the numbers and going, we got a chance. Because nobody wants to invest in a bad investment. Nobody wants to throw bad money after good money, or waste money, right?
No, so it's speaking about President Obama. What had not been a Jesse Jackson 84 and 88 campaign where people could at least see the possibility of a black person, even though Shirley Chisholm had already done it. People forget Shirley Chisholm had already done it. But wasn't a time where people took that as serious. And Jesse made, with the 2 runs, made it doable. And Barack, being a different kind of candidate, brought it home.
Well, listen, to me, I would say this. I would take it even a step further. Meaning, I'm talking about how the planning and because David Axelrod is a pro with black candidates, right? Who ran Obama's campaign. The reason why a Harvard grad, international background as Obama has from Hawaii or whatever, was in Chicago in the first place is because Chicago was different because of Dr. Jackson. It was a place where the black community and the black economics was totally,
Yep, no doubt about some of the top. In fact, we just lost another giant from Chicago. Johnson Products Company, George Johnson just died. Afro Sheen, the major sponsor for Soul Train.
Yes.
He was, and behind the scenes, a lot of people that know he was behind a lot of other black business people because he had the financial means to do it. Yeah. And so, like you say, you had several institutions that were significant in the black community come out of Chicago. So all of that was the training guy. Then Harold Washington's ascension to the mayor's office of Chicago. All of that became an important thing. I think that, of course, I'm a lifelong Democrat. The Democratic Party's got some challenges. However,
they don't know who they are no more.
Well, I think we do. I think we let the Republicans trick us into thinking that we don't. I think that we listen more to I think we need to listen to the people more.
That's
in terms of some of the core issues, and that's why even the Democratic Socialists are making ground.
See, you went where I wanted to go because I want to ask you a question. Can like I said,
so what happens is people want somebody to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
They can't win everywhere. Let me just say that the Democratic Socialist candidates can't win everywhere in the country, but there are pockets where they can be very effective, and that's what they're doing.
And because you need some diversity in political thought. And when you got, you better not watch what you say, or the word police, or you're going to get canceled. Come on now, I can't have an opinion, right? And that's what was going on, and that has been going on for a minute. And I'm glad you went there because I want to talk about that. Like up in Maine, Purple State, getting a Nazi in it. You're going, y'all was really reaching. What are y'all doing, right? Well, but that just shows the mindset behind what they're trying to rebel against and what they're trying to reach for. Because they, quiet as this kept, everybody wants those voters. And personally, I think, and this is what I want to really get to. I think and also as somebody who's got it, one, like Bill Clinton had it, you got it, right? But then also as somebody who understands politics and political history, the idea that you got to be in lockstep in order to have unity in the party, right? Because from what I learned, I know about history, FDR couldn't stand Truman. He hated him. But the party bosses in the country said, this is your guy. And to unify the party, he did that. I feel like we are right. I feel like we are where we are today because, and I know you remember, back when Hillary ran for president, she might have been the front runner, but Bernie had huge rallies. He had huge rallies of Democrats like you, not crazies, not socialists, But Democrats who I used to live in Hillside, and I didn't realize until I graduated, went to college, and came back, that all my friends in high school, all their parents were like people, like mayors and council people and stuff, right? And so, but I mean, and these guys were saying Bernie, and they wasn't crazy socialist radicals. They was going, we need to have some whatever. And the fact that, to me, because just we talk about Trump's rallies being huge, but Bernie had huge rallies too. But they just, to me, the party, Hillary should have just made a deal with Bernie, be my vice president, and she'd have unified the party, and we'd be in Democratic heaven right now, or whatever they want to do. But they just didn't want it.
I also think that there are trends in politics that run, 10, 20-year spans. And I'll give you an example. The reason why we got Trump, because we had Newt Gingrich. The Tea Party people were today's MAGA people. And they took control. They took control of the House, and Newt ended up the speaker. Then we took it back. But those people didn't go anywhere. They just and you had to find the right voice to bring them out. So you go back to Reverend Jackson, the progressive language that Bernie Sanders was told. Reverend Jackson had already done all that.
Yep.
Talked about universal health care. The Rainbow Coalition, all that was, but it built a base in the party. And so people think the Jackson campaign just represented Black folks. It didn't. He did well in places that nobody thought he should do well in, even back then in 84 and 88. And so I look at Sanders' emergence, because people looking for voices very similar to Reverend Jackson's voice. And but you can't win everywhere with that. So where do that's why they say the Democratic Party is a big tent. We've got to find some common goals. And then the other thing is, I think we're losing a major part of our constituency. Labor was a part, but labor. So here were the Democratic constituencies I grew up with. Urban cities were urban machines were strong.
Yep.
You had, but part of that urban machine, you had some regard in the Democratic Party for the poor. And I think, whether it was the welfare rights movement, the tenants movement, all those kind of things that touch people on the ground, where people who are not voting today, because we're not speaking to those issues today in an organized fashion. So what we have to do to get on the ground to get people, movement politics seem to work. What Bernie did was more of a movement than just a political scenario. The civil rights movement was a movement that led into political power. And so I think we've got to figure out how we capture the movement of certain issues. I think one of the interesting things it seems to be uniting people across Republican, Democrat, is the idea about these data centers. People of every political stripe are concerned about, what's going to happen with their electricity bill and their water bill as a result of these huge data centers. Now that will force the industry to change, which is a good thing if it's going to help us manage our resources. We don't want to lose the war on artificial intelligence, but we don't want to lose people due to artificial intelligence either. So,
and also the thing is, to what end, right? You pouring all this stuff into AI, but for what? Well, I mean, what is the goal? Yeah, we don't. It's just like the space race. We got to the moon, but now you got SpaceX, right? I mean, so you got AI.
Where are they going with that, right? Yeah, where are we going? So so we got there's always that's why one of the things I try to do. Obviously, as a citizen, you try to influence the debate. I'm not. I don't think I'm running for office is ever in the cards for me again, but never say never. But I will say this: from the purchase that I have some influence in, we try to influence the process. Business is one of the ways that you can control some parts of your destiny, and that's why I'm focused primarily on business these days.
And I want to stop there, and I want to say, I always say this personally because I told you before, I worked for Dr. Johnson and J. and Johnson, and they had the Minority Business Journal.
Oh,
that's how I got to go.
I love City News. I miss City News.
Yeah, City News, right? And Dr. Johnson was a character. And But I got to go to a
Well, you know,
Wall Street.
daughter Jill is still doing. She runs a thing called IFA. I think it's the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership or something.
Mhm.
And she's still here in Jersey. I think in South Orange or Maplewood. I think South Orange because when I was president of the South Orange Chamber of Commerce, we
Uh, oh, you see it. So I said, she remember me as Chris Sykes, not Chris Black. So I said, what's up? But listen, that was Dr. Johnson. And this is what it gets me too. Sometimes people can't envision black people as being wealthy and rich. But the Johnsons was rich. Dr. Johnson and Dr. Jan Johnson, they got money,
yeah,
right?
well, yeah.
And I mean Midwest money. And but it's in it. But what was I? Well, yeah, I didn't want to get up to touch that. But yes, I wanted to talk about that. The idea that because you mentioned something that I thought was that is especially relevant. We're talking about what's going on now with the Democrats, and we're talking about this Democrat socialists and this. I always say that really America, most of the mechanisms in American government and finance is geared towards individuals owning their own businesses. That is geared towards business. All the tax breaks, all the incentives, everything goes towards being in business for yourself and having your own business. Am I wrong about that?
Well, no, I forget which president said it, but I don't know, it was Eisenhower or somebody said the business of America is business.
Yes.
And so, the struggle is how do we get more people engaged in that process? And how do we that's why the earlier conversation about capital, where money's invested, all that becomes important because you can start out with a small business in a particular area, but at some point you want to go to scale where you can hire hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yes, and employer people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Republicans call them job creators.
right. So at some point, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You start whether it's a sole proprietorship, and you grow and you morph into a corporation, small corporation. But whether you're going to go to franchise, there are other ways to go into business now. They are more capital intensive. The franchise route, where systems are already set up for you.
Well, I want to say this, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if it's there, but I'm a teacher now, right? I was teaching the kid, and he was up in New York and Queens, and he liked cutting hair. He wanted to be a barber, but he was I want to say Southeast Asian, Indian descent, and so I don't know if being a barber is not a high class profession, but he kind of was like didn't want to admit that's what he wanted to do. But if you're a barber, I'm trying to tell him, if you're a barber, you have a barber shop. You are in business. That is your business of that barber shop, right? And I think people think about business in the wrong way.
How many barbershops go out of business? Very few.
Yes.
Either the owner dies or they'll make or something. But the hair care business is a major business in our economy. So in any scenario involving hair, there's money to be made. But black barbershops in particular, or barbering, is going to always exist. That's one thing I don't think artificial intelligence is going to replace unless they come up with a robot that can cut hair.
Well, they got the Flowbee, right? You put the Flowbee in your head and just put the hair or whatever. But you understand what I'm saying? And what I mean is in terms of what people think of as business and being a small business and being in business, because I personally I think it's an anti-intellectual movement, right? Because people are trying to knock down, they don't want they're trying to downplay the importance of getting education, where you and I understand what education really means. It don't mean, and then it's been sold as get a degree, you're going to get a guaranteed job, but that's not really what it is. In the democracy, an educated electorate is a good thing, right? For the health of the democracy, you need educated voters. But they're trying to say, oh, you got the degree, you can't get a job. What's wrong with you? But I was thinking the problem is, because I had one of the best classes I ever had in college, the professor told me, you don't go to college to go work for somebody else. You go to college to go work for yourself and get your own business. So all these people who thought that I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to go work for this corporation, I'm going to go work for this company, they've had the wrong idea. So if you can't get a job now, go start you something, right?
Yeah, well, I think now, particularly with the advent of artificial intelligence, more and more people are going to look for self-employment, how to employ their skills in a different way, and also by using artificial intelligence. You got companies going to who are doing with a smaller number of people, but are doing big business because of artificial intelligence. So how do we learn how to capitalize on it for our own benefit, so that we can grow companies and so forth and so on? And I think that will happen. I think Black women lost about anywhere to 300, 600,000 jobs during this Trump scenario. But the largest growth of people going into business are Black women. So you made your comment earlier, they're going to entrepreneurship. They're not on their laurels. They're trying to figure out what's the next move. And so life, in many instances, some are situational that force you to pivot. Mm-hmm. So what education typically does for you is gives you the ability to adapt and change and learn new things and new skills, and take what you know and adapt it to a different environment or a different scenario, so that you can survive in a very complex and challenging and changing economy.
Facts.
And, that's what we have to. So like one of the opportunities, even with this whole idea about data centers, there's going to be a ton of construction jobs. Not enough construction people. It's not enough plumbers. It's not enough electricians. There's going to be
Mr. Mayor,
this growth.
You hit on one of my pet peeves too, because and this is what I mean, and this is why you talk about how things happen and they get enforced. I'm not going to say I'm glad about this ICE stuff, because it's never whatever. But like I know, a lot of people thought that Black Americans were just whiny crybabies making stuff up. Look at all this opportunity in this country. What's wrong with you people? But the subtleties of races and preferences, and this is this. And so you get all these immigrants coming in, and they get those labor construction jobs that they would not give. Not they would not give, but they wouldn't hire a Black person to do it. Right? I remember talking to the woman. She was in Patterson. I was working for independent paper for Albert, right? And she opened up the Head Start building. They took an old factory, converted into like the city's biggest Head Start place, right? And I remember talking to her. She's great, older Black women. I like them, right? Because they've been through it. And she was in charge of it. And she was telling me that, listen, when we got to go ahead and do this, we was going to do this in the project construction, how she had to fight to get Black people on the job. Mm-hmm. And she was going, that was one of the conditions, that we ain't doing this unless you put some people who look like me or look like this on the job. And that she had to twist the contractor's arms to do that. And so I never forget that, but that's what it is. And then people go, oh, look at these guys, they come over here, do some well. Yeah, because they got the job. But if I got to force you to give somebody a chance, what the hell?
It's a very interesting scenario. A lot of, so it's funny. The immigration debate is a huge debate, even in our community. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple of things that are happening with immigration that we got to be conscious of. Obviously, we should adhere to the law. But one of the things that made America great is, we let people in the country to create opportunities.
Can I say something? Mm-hmm. I don't interrupt you, but I see. This is what I'm saying. I'm smiling because yes, it is great. But that's also called cheap labor. But go ahead.
Well, yeah. No, so listen. One of the interesting things about when you talk about the development of urban cities, one of the new developers of urban cities is the emerging immigrant.
Yep.
They usually go places that other people won't go. They'll usually go fix up those houses that other people kind of let stay there for many, many years. We'll complain about it, but we won't put the investment pennies together to buy mm-hmm. them. And so that's why that whole comment about, oh, well, you've been, there's so much opportunity in this country. So yeah, there's some truth to that. It's interesting. We had a debate one time. There was a big debate about whether or not we should let a particular store come in a particular area. And I remember, some people were like, oh, we can't have them. Yes, but you gonna put something there?
That sounds like you.
And what are we going to do? We're going to let it stay vacant and pull from your property,
which is what it's going to do. We talk about rateables, right?
Yeah. So there's sometimes when you have to fire that trigger. But there are pluses and minuses. I think that there's opportunities around legitimate immigration. I think there's also opportunities for communities to leverage and learn how to work together as well. Um, so I'm not anti-immigrant, but I think that at the same time, we can't begrudge people if they come in with an entrepreneurial spirit when we had the same opportunities that they had.
Yes, if we had the same access, because you want see, and
Well,
that's what I mean.
Here's the difference. And I remember there was somebody who did a book on brothers and sisters from the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. Used a concept called the susu. The susu is where so really a forced savings. People that they trust and they know, they come, and let's say they all have a weekly paycheck.
Yep.
And they decide they're gonna have a pot where every 10 people give $25 to one person every week. And that person can either get their apartment, or they can, buy their school books, or they can save it. But everybody, this forced savings economy that they have creates some economic resources for a group that's locked out. And that's what the African American community did during segregation.
Facts. Listen, I don't want to be contrary, and I agree with you 100%. I got an example of all these 7-Elevens and these other places that are operated,
those are different. So those.
Oh no, I mean, but it's kind of the same thing, because I remember talking to a guy who was saying
they come in with more capital though.
Well, not even that, but the agreement is you come in,
you work.
It's like a receivership. You come in,
teach you how to get one.
Yes, and then you work here.
Get it. I'll lend you the money to get it.
Yes, and it's like a receivership.
Donuts.
Yes.
Donuts too.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And yes, exactly. And so and that's what I'm talking about. We talk about access to capital, but I always think about the movie. What is it? Raising the Sun, where the son tries to take the mother's money.
He took the insurance money.
Yeah, and he's sitting there crying because dude done robbed him, and that's something that we have to continue to. This, that
but in our history, that's how black banks got created.
Facts.
We saved our nickels and dimes. Our churches and our religious institutions put their money together, like in the history of City National Bank in Newark, which is owned by Industrial Bank. Which the story of black-owned bank came in and took it over. Industrial Bank is a black-owned bank.
But listen, I want to take you to a side talking about Industrial Bank. It used to be City National Bank. Because listen, you're right. It's from Washington D.C. and Ras Baraka went to Howard University. He's having some issues right now, right? And so he knows the guy, because the guy went to Howard University. They knew each other. And I was hoping when Ras got to be mayor that he was going to divest some of that New York City and New York money and put it. And because as a bank, you need to have a huge revenue stuff to do deals and grow it too. I was hoping he would get permission to take some of that money and put it in the industrial bank and help them grow. But the federal FDIC and stuff, you gotta, for municipalities, you gotta have all these thresholds that you gotta be able to meet.
What happens is, even I can, when I was mayor, we had a small account with City National because I wanted to make sure we had some of our money that supported Black economic development. So we had a small account with City National when I was, but it's interesting. I tell you, like leverage. Let me tell you, it's interesting. So I've been following this story, you probably have too, about the whole Delaney Hall.
Yep.
The Geo Group. The Geo Group owns Delaney Hall. Well, the Montclair just took out their deposits from Citizen Bank because it doesn't match their values, because they do business with Citizens Bank. And so that, and I think a couple other institutions did the same thing.
I don't like that. I'll tell you why I don't like that. Because I like the spirit of it to help those poor detained people. Once again, ICE people. But listen, what about Wells Fargo and these other cats who were doing predatory lending on Black homeowners and Black investors? Ain't nobody divested from them. You see,
Well, yeah,
and
no,
so to me, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So
yeah,
don't sit on your high horse and say I'm doing this for the immigrant when you ain't done jack for Black Americans, my
yeah.
brother.
There's been some discussion about, you know, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, other banks as well.
Ain't nobody divested from them
Well,
characters. Nobody
not
took their
all,
money out.
but there's some people there you get their attention when you move money.
Mm-hmm.
Now you may end up putting it back, but they get the message when you
Yeah, cut that stuff out.
yeah, when you move your money. So yeah, they've been under all the banks have been under a microscope. There was one in New Jersey, was one in Newark, and I remember I was heavily involved with New Jersey Citizen Action at the time. They had a branch down on Halsey Street, right in the middle of Newark. They had not made one loan to Newarkers. So Newark pulled their money out. Newark had a significant amount of money in the bank too.
Mm-hmm.
This was some years ago, and they took their money out. And this is one of the things in my public service career when I ended up being on the board of New Jersey Citizen Action and during my career, and ultimately became one of the co-chairs at one point in time. But we used to use the Community Reinvestment Act when a
Mm-hmm.
bank would merge or if branches would close, they have to do public notices.
Right.
We would challenge all of that. We would show where they were not lending in their market area, and out of that there were a number of things created, including having community advisory boards.
Mm-hmm.
And we had what they called Community Reinvestment Act agreements, which targeted specific loans in certain census tracts. And we tried to help them achieve those goals by serving on. So in my career, I've served on. I mean, people don't remember the Dime Savings Bank, but I served on the Dime Savings Bank Advisory Board. I served for a long time on PNC's advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bank called Sovereign Bank that no longer exists. A lot of these banks merged and were bought by other banks. Well,
Get brought up.
advisory board of Sovereign Bank, on Summit Bank.
Mm-hmm.
People, people remember Summit Bank, but Summit Bank, I served in their advisory board. This is all a result of citizen advocacy, putting a
Mm-hmm.
scope on those financial institutions so that, they would do the right thing and so forth. So, we have, there's a lot of things that everyday people can do.
Once again, you dropped another gem. When you hit Spike Lee right there, do the right thing. And that's the interesting thing to me, right? Because Larry Ham, and Larry Ham always says power concedes nothing, that you got to take it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Like I say, do the right thing. I got to force you to do the right thing. I got to leverage you to do the right thing. Because in your business model up to this point, banks, whatever, it wasn't necessary. You're still making profit. You're still doing business. It's not a pressing issue for you unless I bring it to your concern.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, and unfortunately, every gain that let's say I'll just term it as the poor, the dispossessed, the underserved, the people who were not part of the American elite or who would not have some of the advantage of American society. You had to fight your way in, and that struggle continues. And each generation gets a different challenge. So, if we don't push, it never gets better.
Facts.
And when we push, sometimes, one generation gets the benefit of that aggressiveness, and then seems like everything gets quiet, except that they come back and morph into a new strategy to kind of lock you out of the system, and then the activism starts over again.
I'm smiling because Thomas Jefferson, slave owner, founding father, great man, or whatever. What he said, he's famous for saying the tree of liberty had to be watered with the blood of patriots. But it's the same thing in terms of this
Oh
tree
yeah,
of civil rights. You got to keep coming back.
Yep.
Right.
And so that's why the study of history is so important. You study it to see what worked, what didn't work.
Yes.
And then you amend it to the current times, and you come up with some new strategies. I was in DC recently, and I was listening to Senator Blunt, who's the black woman who's the senator from Delaware. Mm-hmm. She gave a powerful presentation about, we have to look at the world in new eyes
Yep.
to fight the current challenges we face. And that's real, because every day as the world changes, so much our strategies change and get updated, and our strategies have to shift
You want to
somewhat.
know what's
Still
funny along those lines, Mr. Mayor?
um,
I'm smiling because you talk about the struggles, and I don't know if this is for you too, but I know you can probably feel me when I say this. I always think about Black Americans descended from the Black Africans who were kidnapped, raped, robbed, tortured, and enslaved, forced to labor here for free for hundreds of years, and we're the descendants. But I always think about us being the the hunters. We and the fighters. We got to fight and uplift this, and we coming up. This is this, and so it's interesting to see the perspective of others who are not coming, who are coming voluntarily coming to America from outside America, Caribbean, African countries, this, and they want to kind of get to where they think we are. Our position in our minds as Black Americans is this, but their perception of us from the outside is something totally different. I was in grad school with an African girl, and she was in school, and she was talking about, I think she was in France or something. She was some kind of country, but they mistook her. She said they thought she was a Black American. And because they thought she was Black American, they treated her differently. And she did not, and she played along going, yes, yes, to take advantage of it. But if they had known that she was not Black American, she said that she knew they would have treated her differently. And so that the idea that we as Black Americans, we don't think of ourselves in that way, at least in my opinion. I don't know that we think of ourselves as being the hunted, right? As being the envy of other people, that people want to take, to be where we at and have that spot. Because we sitting here going, our spot ain't that great. We always got to fight these characters, right?
But so what happens is people, so it's interesting. We're judged by two barometers. The people look at our people who are struggling as the least of these, and that becomes one category, and they view us as that all we are is struggling and poor, uneducated, whatever. But then there's another group of people that see Michael Jordan, they see Magic Johnson, they see Beyonce, they see Jay-Z. They think that that's how Black folks are, and they resent that. We're outside our community, resent that. Oh, they don't need no. What more can they ask for? Brock, the president? They don't need no. They're getting too much.
Yep.
So we got the two dichotomies. The challenge is people forget about the least of these in our community, and that's why I say the whole conversation. Even sometimes I had this conversation with somebody recently. I said, sometimes we get stuck in our own paradigm. We're talking about at the Black middle class or above. We talk about the struggles that we have. Sometimes we forget about there are people that are struggling at a much different level.
Yes.
And is that part of our mission still, to make sure that we lift up that particular community, that we make sure there's a social safety net? Are we concerned, or do we just move away and forget about it and try to survive the way we have to survive? So that's not only society, but we have to see. When I grew up, and even in Newark, the Black middle class wasn't that far away. Their house might have been a little nicer, but they went to the same religious house that you did. You ran into them at the barbershop. You run into your teacher at the supermarket, but that's far between now. The class dichotomy in our community is big, and so how do we heal that? I think one of the things about at this moment that cities are redeveloping. That's why it's important that we figure out how do we do mixed income housing where everybody benefits. That kids who are on the lower economic scale get to go to school with kids who have a little bit more resources because they learn from each other.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I know you've been hearing this too. I see these municipalities, Tom's River, these places I think of as suburban and affluent, going, oh, we got to lay off teachers. We don't have enough money for our schools. And I'm sitting there going, that sounds like it must be a tax revolt because senior citizens if their kids are not in paying or not in school, they don't want to pay those taxes for the school levy. And so they voted because you can vote the school budgets down. And so
Who
I'm
would have
saying
ever,
that any municipality that's
who would
having
ever thought,
problems with their funding their
ever
schools,
thought, who would have ever thought Montclair would have a financial problem in school district?
yeah, that's
We would have,
crazy, right?
yeah, we would have never thought that, but they do. And so I was listening to a guy, I think his name is Ahmad Shahati. He's from Linden. He used to be on the Linden school board. He's now a school administrator.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying with the cost of insurance, and he was working at some more suburban school district, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying with the cost of insurance and all these kinds of things, it's going to be virtually, I mean, every school district in New Jersey is having a major challenge now to meet their budget needs, no matter where they're located.
That sounds crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, when you look at, I just saw a report recently where the insurance costs are skyrocketing. I think about 15% more per municipality. So the two things happening. The workers now have to contribute more.
Mm-hmm.
I think even the Medicare patients costs are going up. So, it's going to be, that means the city pays more and then the employees also have to contribute more. So nobody's a winner in that. It's nobody's a winner.
See,
And
this is what I mean about not understanding government and this democratic socialist stuff where they say, oh, socialism will solve that. You don't need socialism because based on what you said about the insurance rate, that means somebody somewhere in these insurance agencies or their lobbyists, they've messed around or they figured there's more risk. So we have to ask and pass that risk on to whoever. They're raising the prices. You need somebody to make them put the prices down, right? But even then, you can't do that because you got school shooting.
That part of it's true. The other thing is, healthcare is probably the number one challenge for us as a society. First of all, we're living longer.
Mm-hmm.
We have more chronic illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to figure out at an early age, how do we make people healthier? Yeah. How do we start teaching healthy living like in elementary school, maybe?
Yeah, and still keep McDonald's.
Yeah. So, I don't. We have a lot of work to do as a society. I mean, it becomes a cultural shift if we're going to reduce, because we got to figure out everybody's got to be in the game of trying to reduce healthcare costs. Then the other issue is, how does a doctor get a fair rate of return? What's a fair rate of return?
Yeah.
School for all these years, and I expect to make at least a decent enough lifestyle. So, but what is a fair amount? And
Mm-hmm.
And then all the intermediaries in between, the pharmacies, the medicine, all that adds to the cost of our care. Mm-hmm. And so we got some things to do. Every industry's got to look at it, and so they think artificial intelligence is going to solve a lot of this because that means they strip the bodies, but then the people are going to be walking around here without no income if that's the case.
And you can't listen. That is a recipe for bad. That is a recipe for bad things. People walking around with nowhere to go, nothing else to do. Right? That's not good. You can't have millions of people running around. Right? Mm-hmm. It's just not. And so, but that's why I talk to you, Mr. Mayor. Like I said, you got it. But then also, I've always, my interaction with you, which is why I think you are, and you were a great leader, right? Is that you have these higher presidents plus. Often serving the U.S. Conference of Mayors, talking to the different municipal leaders across the country and whatever, seeing the similarities you guys are all dealing with. I would say, your view and perspective on stuff was broader than the average municipal leader. How that? Is that a nice way to put it? Right? And your perspective,
the average private citizen.
Yes, and then also, like I said, because listen, man. To me, this socialist stuff is like I said, you mentioned before. Well, no, I want to say this. People I know who were Bernie supporters back when Hillary ran, these were not socialists. They were regular Democratic people who just wanted
Well, that means that the idea of socialism becomes more acceptable. Look. We go back to Roosevelt when the Social Security Administration, all that was created, and started to help people. We've always had a social safety net that is viewed as socialist. So people can't, we're not a totally capitalist, free enterprise economy.
Oh no, listen. But what I'm saying when I hear socialist, because it makes me laugh because it's so you once again these kids and their education level. The Nazi Party, their official name was the National Socialist Party of Germany, right? And the Soviet Soviet Union, Communist Russia was called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, right? So socialist to me has always got these negative connotations. Not that the idea is.
So it's interesting that when you talk about authoritarianism, generally has been associated with communists and socialism.
Yes, fascism, baby, and communism.
Yeah. So, but the question: can you have a socialist democratic political economy? That's the question. The United States already has mechanics of it because we have things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, public welfare.
Mm-hmm.
These things already exist, but we call it a social safety net.
Yes.
So that people don't fall at a level where they can't at least sustain themselves as a human being. But some socialist ideas already exist in the economy. So there's one group of people that want to push them a little bit further. The question is, can you have capitalism and socialism exist in the same space? And that's the debate we're having.
Well, see, that's the international part of it. But those societies, they're authoritarian. Like people will point to what is it? I don't know if it's called Kampuchea anymore. I don't know if that's Kampuchea is the name. But it used to Singapore. They'll say, "Oh, look at Singapore," or they'll say, "Look over here in Norway," because in Singapore you had an authoritarian type thing, socialist type stuff, and it was order the streets are clean, but they're also beach you and cane you or whatever, right? And then they talk about the Nordic countries, with Norway and these guys. But to me, and this is once again, I'm not a Trump guy. But everybody talk, they want to point to, the socialists in Europe and this stuff like that. But dude, and they want to compare the spending on defense. But since World War II, none of those countries had to spend anything on defense because America was spending money for their defense. So I can spend all my budget on everything else because I don't got to defend myself. But if I had to defend yourself, and it was in America's interest to do this because if we don't have to defend or you let them on, they'll be back at war with each other. It'll be World War III tomorrow, right? Because that's their history.
So that's the challenge. That's why even with a guy like Trump, who said he ran on the idea we're not going to get into these forever wars. Mm-hmm. There were many Americans who said, "Oh, we shouldn't be in Afghanistan, we shouldn't be in Iraq," and so, but now he's engaged in the same folly he said the other people were in Iran. And the Iranians ain't going nowhere fast. They'll play it out.
Nothing you talk about planning and vision. I'm smiling because it doesn't seem to make sense to me. In a world where we have the Suez Canal in Egypt and we got the Panama Canal in Panama, I cannot believe with all the billions of dollars that's been coming out of the oil-rich countries in the Middle East for so many years that nobody ever thought to build a canal around the Strait of Hormuz so that somebody couldn't bottleneck it. Right? I don't understand that.
I think the Gulf countries always thought that they would be able to work it out among themselves. They didn't know the outlier like Iran. So Iran is leveraging them by bombing them. They ain't bombing the U.S. They bombing the Gulf countries.
Yeah.
So they push Trump back because Trump is getting planes from Qatar.
But I want to ask you the whole idea of insurance. Like I said, that to me, that seems like wise business planning. We need to build a strait here so that in case somebody ever decide they want to block us, they can't block us, right? And because it's two bottlenecks over there, right? You got the Strait of Hormuz, but then when you come down by Saudi Arabia by the group by Yemen, they got a bottleneck down there too. And the Houthis are bombing people. So I'm sitting there going, all the money out there, and nobody thought, and also let's keep it real, the slave labor from America, right? So let's build a canal. right? So that nobody could ever stop us from commerce, right? That seemed like a good economic opportunity, right?
Yeah,
Get some jobs for the
like
canal.
like all people, we fall short in terms of what we think is the vision. I don't think the Gulf countries ever thought they'd have this kind of problem again. And so it because the Strait of Hormuz, no matter what happened, so it's interesting. Because Trump talks about President Obama, but we didn't have this problem without the Strait of Hormuz. It always operated, and so now
See?
you didn't have these inflation and the deal that he cut, which is going to be the same deal that Trump's going to have to cut. He unraveled the deal to get now he's got a situation which costing us, billions of dollars, and God knows how long we're going to be in there.
Man, to me, that goes back. See, it's why I'm talking to you. We going back to geopolitics, and everybody seems to forget about W. Bush and about Dick Cheney, right? But Dick Cheney told him, "We ain't never leaving. We going to Iraq. We going to stay there forever." And yes, we are staying there forever. So you ask about that because it's just like Europe. If we don't stay there, it's going to be chaos.
Well, and, yeah, Russia's waiting so they can expand.
Yeah.
So this thing with Ukraine, Putin is hope America's preoccupied with Iraq so he can expand his little domain. And so the European countries, as I understand it, have spent more than they have ever spent in military expenses, but it's probably still not enough. The Americans still going to have to probably provide some support to them if they don't want the further expansion of Russia beyond what they've taken. And Ukraine is listen, Russia's army is not as strong as they thought they were because they can't, again, like Trump saying, we got them wiped out, but yet we get our service people killed. They ain't seem like they wiped out to me. And Ukraine,
I'm not laughing, but you're 100% right. That's like
they're decimated, but yeah, they're killing our people, but they're decimated.
And that's like W saying mission accomplished.
You don't hear nothing from Putin about what the state of the war is over there. He was we'll end this thing, but they can't seem to Lazinski's got a fighting spirit, man. Whatever he got to do, and
that's America's fault too, because the problem with Ukraine is in my opinion, after the Cold War ended, they all wanted to get in NATO and America, so they gave up their nukes. If they had kept their nukes, they would have never got invaded. They gave up their nukes. This is why Iran wants nukes. If they had kept their nukes but that was the deal. Get rid of your nukes, we'll let you into NATO. But we'll welcome you in the West. They got rid of their nukes, but they never got welcome in.
So Saudi Arabia is trying to arm up.
Yes.
With the help.
That's not good either. Right? And so, I say this because we talk about business, and the thing that always got me, Mr. Mayor, about business that bothered me, especially the Wall Street guys and the high finance guys, when they talk about the market, and they act like it's like this impersonal thing. The market is like this. I always think it's like the god of Mammon, right? Oh, we worship the market. The market is whatever. No, the market is people and stuff happening in the world. What's going on? Like you said, that oil stuff, the hormones. That's a reflected in the price of oil here in America. You with Miss Muhammad doing real estate here. That's reflected in the movement of people from New York to New Jersey, right?
Listen, this whole inflation thing has risen the cost of building housing tremendously.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is always the irony too, because we talk about how bad things are, but then you look around and you see roads. I see roads being built and work project is a tunnel project to make another tunnel up there. When I see, and then you see all these housing and apartment buildings going up, and you going up.
Chris, when no matter how bad the economy is, somebody's making money. You just gotta you gotta be on the right side of it. And so listen to this. This is even more cynical. In all this discussion about war, somebody's selling weapons.
Yes, and that's what you were mentioning before about Trump and that's what I meant about Cheney and W and them. And Eisenhower said, "Beware the military-industrial complex." Right? Because listen, war is big business.
The general telling you, look, some of this is about money.
Yes, and so even though that stuff in Iran is bad, like you said, somebody making money, and it's just the nature and things of business. And so that's why I say you being a business guy, finance guy, understanding how things work, the nuances. And like I said, I know that I'm cynical, right? I don't consider you to be cynical because you got it. Guys who got it, they can't be cynical because everybody likes them, right? but
Well, listen, the one thing I will say is hope springs eternal. Without hope, we're lost.
facts.
Hmm?
Facts. And so yeah, so I want to bring this back. But yeah, we touched on almost everything I wanted to touch on because once again, you have it and you took the conversation just naturally, but you just played into where I wanted to go. So that's what I like, Mr. Mayor, right? That's why I talk to you, man. And also, I believe in leadership, man. And once again, uh, yeah, and the times is being different. That's why I said before the whole idea of a successor for you. Yeah, I'm not knocking anybody, but I don't know if there's a you know different there's different types of leaders, different styles, different whatever. So I don't know that there's a more successful leader than you were. Now you also had a great partner in the form of Bilal Beasley as well, right?
Mhm.
And then when you went back before talking about relationships, that's what he always said. I feel like I got my best lesson in American democracy, not in the college room, not in the political science, but from D. Bilal Beasley explaining how black people came up in Irvington. And that's
Yeah.
the other thing too, right? You see municipalities around here where black people are in power. When we think of Hillside, Irvington, East Orange, those are black cities. Atlanta, DC used to be black cities. That was the end of struggle. That didn't just, power don't concede nothing. You had to take that. You mentioned the mayor of Chicago when he became the black mayor of Chicago, the first one, Hal Washington. Yeah, that was a struggle, baby, right?
And listen, he spent his first term and died in office fighting that city council.
Yes, yes. Listen, that happened to Glenn Cunningham, the first mayor, black mayor
Oh,
during
I
Sweet
know. You
Tooth.
know, Glenn was a great friend.
Really?
Glenn
Was he
called.
really a good dude, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, was a great dude, but it was interesting. So one day he called me, Mayor Bowser. Sharp couldn't come, but like three or four of us went over to. He had a major meeting. We went over to the city council meeting.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't believe what I saw. I said, I seen mayors and city councils disagree. I said, Glenn, you got to figure out a way. Some of this stuff you got to let them have
Well,
because
you
you
know what
got to
that
pick
was.
important things to you that you want to get done in your administration. And some of that minor stuff, let it go. But nobody understands the local flavor like the people that's in it. But I'm
Can I
as an
say something?
outside observer. Uh,
My grin is going to get cheesier just off you saying that because I like the idea of that. I respect you as a leader. I definitely respect Mayor Bowser as a leader, and the fact that you guys went over there because you got another black mayor becoming a municipal leader, and you have issues, and so you go over there, and he's a friend of yours too. Let's go see what he's doing. Let's go see if we can help him out.
if there's some perspective we could give. Glenn was a fighter. I'll tell you one funny story about Glenn. We were at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and just when Reverend Sharpton ran for president. People forgot Reverend Sharpton ran for president.
I forgot that too.
I think it was before was it the 2006 campaign? I think it was
Mm-hmm.
2006 presidential campaign. Anyway, uh, it was around that time. I guess maybe so maybe it was the 2028 campaign. But anyway, he was running for president. So Terry McAuliffe, who later became the governor of Virginia, was the Democratic National Committee chairman.
Chairman, yep.
So he was in the room while he was moderating these panel of people running for president on the Democratic side.
Mm-hmm.
So it was you want to hear a funny story? So there were these white guys there who were criticizing Sharpton, whispering. You sitting right behind them so you can hear what they're saying. What is they say, right?
Uh-huh.
Before the meeting over, Al had to won him over.
Well, he talked.
Yeah, listen. They said, "Well, he wasn't bad at all." So at the end of the meeting, Glenn was so animated. He went to speak to Chairman McAuliffe. So he was over there telling him about the Jersey City race. That's when what's the guy's name? He was a Republican. He was
Schunder.
yeah, he was the mayor of Jersey City.
Red
He
Schunder.
he was going to run against Glenn again.
Mhm.
So he was over there telling them that the Democrats in Jersey City are trying to support a Republican over him.
Mhm.
So, McCullough was like looking at him. And I was laughing at Glenn. That man ain't thinking about what you got to say. He's trying to win the White House back, and you telling him about Jersey City.
And what's going on? Well, now listen, I'm smiling because I don't know if I told you. I used to, after I worked for the War Rouse, I covered, Irvington and other places. But I worked for the Jersey Journal. I worked for the City News, right?
I think I remember that.
And I worked for the Jersey Journal. And so I was in Jersey City. I know Earl Morgan. I know Stan Eason, right? And I was there. And you talk about when Glenn Cunningham, because that seemed like a conspiracy too, because he was a healthy dude running, and all of a sudden he dropped down dead.
Oh,
there's a lot of people who thought there was something weird about that crap.
Much pressure on him. I guess just ran him out of office. I think that they told Robert Menendez, former Senator Menendez, I was at his funeral, and they escorted Senator Menendez out of there.
Yeah. Oh, because that's what the beef was. You said you went to that meeting. The council president, his name was L. Harvey Smith, a black dude, tall guy, glasses.
I knew Harvey.
See, you knew Harvey. And what type of dude? But that was it. It was the county versus Jersey City. For whatever reason, when Cunningham got elected, the county turned against him. Right. And the council went with the county, and Glenn was doing the city. And so they couldn't do nothing.
For the Senate and won.
His wife.
Well, no, he was the senator before his wife. His wife took his seat.
Yes.
Glenn beat the machine to take that Senate seat.
Yes. And
Trump took the Senate seat in Newark.
Yes. And they did not like that. So it was all of Hudson County united against Glenn Cunningham, which was crazy. It was kind of like with Sharp, but Sharp is built different, as you know.
Well, no, but Sharp actually won the Democratic nomination without a primary fight. When Senator Littman, I don't know if Senator Littman died. I forget what happened, which caused that seat to. Did Senator Littman die? I guess, yeah, Senator Littman must have died, and that seat became vacant. And so Sharp just put his name forward, and that was it. That's all she wrote.
I know, but I'm talking about the political dynamics. And this is why it makes me laugh when you see municipalities like over in Jersey City now, where they got the new mayor, and they got to listen. And that I want to ask you about that. That's one thing we didn't cover. How? And he's a former councilman. And wait, let me finish. Let me frame it so I know you're going to answer.
Okay.
How do you get a $255 million budget deficit that nobody knew anything about? That seems crazy to me. And then they blame it all on Fuller. Well, that was just Fuller. Fuller did it. It wasn't our thing. We want to raise taxes 15%.
Yeah, that's a strategy to blame everything on your predecessor. So that's a strategy. But in his case, he had a major challenge because he was a sitting council member who had, people, it's a basic municipal, at least in New Jersey, municipal lesson in a Faulkner Act form of government.
Yep.
That the city council, because I was a councilman too. People forget I served on the city council, was the president of the city council. So what happens is the council people have three powers. They legislate, appropriate, and investigate. So the appropriation part is you're responsible for the budget. The mayor proposes and the council disposes. Now, Solomon's argument is that he always voted no to the budget. But that don't mean you don't know the budget because you voted no.
If you see, and I want you to add you said, the three powers, there's 2 D's to it's called due diligence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to do your job.
Listen, and I'm sure you people, this is for the public's benefit. All you got to do is go to the city clerk's office and ask for a copy of the audit, and they'll tell you everything that's in it. You can see what things they needed to correct. All that stuff is a public record, but most people don't
know that. Because listen, that's the interesting thing too. And this is when we talk about, I call them New York City expats. All these New Jersey City people, and they going, from New York, right? And they act like, and maybe I'm, now that you mentioned it, maybe I'm not giving, maybe they don't understand how, I try to explain to people, Jersey's different. Maybe they don't understand the Faulkner Act. Because a
lot of people don't. they think that people think the mayor can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And that's not, most people don't. It don't matter where you come, you can live there. I know people lived in New Jersey all their life. They think the mayor can do this, that, and the other. They don't know what the city council does to this day.
And you mentioned Glenn Cunningham, and that is a perfect example because I was telling them, listen, the city council as a body is co-equal to the mayor. It's just as powerful as the mayor. If the city council say we ain't doing nothing like they did with Glenn Cunningham,
well,
you can't do nothing.
In the Faulkner Act, they actually they call it strong mayor.
Yes.
Because Faulkner Act, there's certain things. So the council can't hire and fire.
Mm-hmm.
You can hire and fire. There's, so what happens is just the give and take of government. You council members, theoretically, they can't tell staff to do anything. Now, what they do is they use their influence through the budget and their investigatory powers, kind of shape the government up. But
see, that's why I like talking to you because listen, I'm smiling because I'm thinking about it because that happened in Orange with young Mayor Eldridge Hawkins when he told the city employees, "Don't talk to them."
The city council can't. I mean, theoretically, the strict letter of the law, they have no relationship to the day-to-day management of the city.
Yeah.
But courtesy matters.
Yeah.
Practicality matters. So my approach was, if it gets problem solved, let's do it. Sometimes the better way so that the mayor is always clued in, either have the staff send you a memo saying Councilman so and so came in, so that you're at least aware of it, or we would try to do where council made requests in writing for certain stuff, and we would then try to facilitate it or whatever. But in normal human discord, you see somebody in the hallway and somebody needs their garbage picked up. I'm not going to tell you not to talk to the councilman because that's a problem that could be fixed in 2 seconds.
Right.
But Eldridge theoretically was within the bounds of the law.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Because that's what it came down to. But it like I said, we get these people, and like you said, they think, oh, he's the king and emperor. No, he's not. Even Trump is not the king and emperor. That's why I'm not, personally, I don't know how you feel, but nationally, everybody talking about fascism and monarchy and no kings. And I'm sitting there going, man, this is not ancient Rome, right? And it ain't Caesar. And for somebody to take on the kingship powers in America, a lot of things would have to go wrong.
Yeah, and some things have gone wrong with Trump. Trump has pressed the norms unusually.
Oh, he pushed the envelope to the end of what the executive branch can do.
So, most normal people wouldn't do what he does.
Yeah.
Never saw a president. So the challenge for a ultra capitalist in the White House is that he uses it to benefit his business.
Yeah.
That's what Americans have never seen before. And I don't know if there has to be a constitutional change or whatever that prohibits that.
Well, listen, his first term, I smile because once again, I'm cynical, right? And I look at these things, like I said, because I remember this first term, and they made the point of him divesting himself from the business stuff and putting his daughter in charge. And then what did she do? Her and her husband Kushner, they went on a world tour, signing business deals and making business deals with everybody. And I'm sitting there going, of course, he ain't got to run it. He got his daughter and her husband.
You ain't got to look at the first term. You look at the second term. He's an unofficial advisor, so he don't have to follow any ethics laws. He's an unofficial advisor to the president. So he goes to these negotiating on behalf of the president, but he doing his business deal, leveraging.
Oh, and listen, you want to, you're helping finance with development with Dina Bio and also with Ms. Muhammad. But listen, we talk about the Middle East and also how things have changed in UAE and Dubai being successful, how this has changed the paradigm, right, out there on what it is, not just the oil. But when I heard Trump talk about Gaza, saying that's prime beachfront, land, I said, whoa,
everything fair game to him. He looks at it as a real. Look, I'm going to take over Canada.
Facts. And then the next thing you know, I saw a thing saying that the president of Lebanon is telling Trump, are you going to help us rebuild and redevelop after this? And I'm sure Trump is going, sure, we'll help you.
there's money to be made. Yeah,
right?
listen, we never saw a guy use the White House in that kind of in that fashion before. So
But
this is
he's a business dude, right?
yeah, it's just So it matters what kind of guy. Do you want a guy who cares about people, or do you want a guy that cares about money? Bottom line.
Well, this is America. This is America. And also, I want to ask you too, because you talk about the socialism and stuff. And I don't want to say capitalism gets a bad name, but I want to say this about capitalism, Mr. Mayor. Like I said, I'm not a socialist guy because to me, like I mentioned, the Nazis and the USSR, aside from the Israeli kibbutzes, right, which to me is the only real form of socialism that I've seen. When Israel first got founded, they had these small settlements called kibbutz,
Yeah,
and everybody
definitely.
had to work together because they was in a hostile land and whatever, right? And that's to me that's socialism in action, but it's small scale. And I don't know if you can build that out or level that up to a wider scale. And so, but capitalism to me, and I don't want to say to me, capital, I don't think it's perfect, but to me, it's like a reflection of human nature. Human beings want stuff. Guys want the pretty girl. Girls want the handsome man. Kids want the pretty thing. They want the house. They want the car. They want you know what I'm saying? And that's to me, that's the root of capitalism. Am I wrong?
No, no. I think that I guess there's a few ways to look at the economy. So when Americans were primarily small businesses, when towns, what makes it extremely troubling for some folks is that the scale, sometimes you need scale to produce certain kinds of products, but the scale of wealth that get controlled by a few individuals. If capitalism could be more fairer and more just outcomes from its practices, and that's what America has tried to do by including more people in the American economy. We have to work at that all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the challenge. How do we create fairer, more decent kinds of scenarios? And a lot of that is the barons of wealth have to figure out, what kind of society they want. Do they want to control all the resources and have a bunch of people that have none?
Which just leads to which is how revolutions get started,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Let's keep it 100.
So that's why this whole idea of a social safety net. But so it's all of us pushing to make a more, would you say, a more perfect union,
Mm-hmm.
trying to push to make a more perfect union. So I think it was John Hope Bryant has written a book about capitalism, and I think one of his premises is that capitalism has to be more fairer, and more people need to be able to see the rewards of it for people to buy into it in a greater way, um, and learn the tools of capitalism that are fair. You know, if you went, you kind of got you kind of taken us there in our conversation when you talked about most of us have to go into some kind of business to survive in this new economy.
Yes.
That's going to change a little bit about how we view the means of production. When the means of production are local and people can see that you're producing a product or something that they need, then they support it. And then you're not hoarding the wealth. You're sharing. You're making good jobs for people. You're sharing in the economy. You're sharing in the wealth. Um, one of the new forms of, not new forms, but it's been out there a while, employee ownership,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth and so on. So I think we probably overdid our time, right, sir?
Well, no, we still got a few minutes. Listen,
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
listen.
Okay.
We still got about 15 minutes. I was two other things I want to, and then you mentioned Target. I want to end this. I want to ask you this. I am concerned, like you said, with this the way they're trying to not say they. I say they. I mean Hillary Clinton is famous for saying taking the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, right? They made it, she made that famous, world famous. I thought that I personally feel that her quote.
She did attribute it to the African proverb, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, but that to me that
But
got a lot of press. But
yeah,
to me, the one that should have got more press from her was there's she's talking about Bill Clinton and the whole smart monkey stuff and how because the Republicans hated Clinton. People don't understand. They don't remember they hated him. She said there's a vast right-wing conspiracy at work in this country. And I believe that that is true. And I think that is always constant. You mentioned before, they pop back up. They keep they're always at work. And they never stop because they're always thinking.
It's no doubt about it. Look, Mitch McConnell couldn't stand Donald Trump, but they wanted to control the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And if you look at, I forget the gentleman's name, but I've been doing some extensive reading on how he's funded a number of these conservative legal organizations. Most of the conservative justices got sponsored by him. That's the name. Yeah. And so they had a strategy that was multifaceted for a long time. And that's why I say the Ice-T, not the Ice-T, the Tea Party Republicans were kind of the most organized group that I saw. When I was a kid, you had the Nixon days, but I was too young to really get involved with that. But Nixon did the Southern strategy. That's the Southern strategy where he appealed to the racist instincts of the South, and so that's when the divide became even more so in terms of blacks going into the Democratic Party, leaving the Republican Party in droves, and so that schism. When I was getting my early political education, there were some Republicans, like right here in New Jersey, that were more moderate. You had Tom Keene Sr., who served as governor, who got a significant amount of the black vote because of his philanthropic work and some of it in the black community. Marge Rockham, all these people were kind of moderate. They were fiscal conservatives, but kind of like social moderates. Even Christy Todd Whitman kind of fits into that mode. So, environmental people, stuff like that, those kind of issues. Bob Dole helped create the Americans with Disabilities Act. There were Republicans that made a little sense. They might have been tighter on the fiscal dollar as the fiscal, but the racial animus wasn't so evident.
Yep.
And so, but with Newton went after all the social safety net, and Reagan in 1989, which led to the rise of Newt. So that whole era of the 80s, which saw the crack epidemic hit the black community and at the same time, the social safety net was pulled out from under us. And so that divide just kind of took root. So, but then at the 80s was so bad, we end up getting Bill Clinton.
Yep.
And Bill Clinton, he kind of morphed a bit of two strategies. He was like appealing to, in many respects, the black community, but then appealing to the conservatives. He signed to electrocute that black man who barely had the mind of a child. And he did the thing with Sister Soldier.
Yeah, he used to be called a centrist. And listen, and he was also from Arkansas in the South. So he was a good old boy too. But black people loved him.
But it was important to the Democratic victory because he was able to cut into the Southern vote. And still was attractive enough for some blacks who gets on Arsenio, does the right symbolic stuff with the what is it? What did he play? Saxophone or whatever. So he was morphing to all things, all people, charismatic personality, all of that. So that swung the Democratic, but more of a moderate tone. I mean, 3 strikes you're out, all that kind of stuff happened under Clinton. So and then we get, who was after Clinton?
W.
Yeah, W. So
he messed up the entire world.
Yeah, he started to swing back, but George W. was, at least from a PR standpoint, he was a compassionate conservative. That's what he tried to package himself in. In fact, one of the monumental things he did for the world is he put a tremendous amount of resources in Africa to prevent AIDS. And Trump was trying to cut that money recently. You look at people when you look at their entire record, you hate, some of them you hate to point out they did something good, but the real facts remain. He did do that, and
Mm-hmm.
and then of course we end up with after him Obama, and then so that we went from the Bush era because the war, and he used Colin Powell to sell this unjust war. And so people got mad at him for that, and we get Obama.
Mm-hmm.
So now the backlash comes, Reconstruction backlash comes
Yep.
with the mega, and they used everything that they could that divides the country, race, immigration, all of that. They used all of it, and it worked. It,
Yeah.
it woke the Tea Party people up. It woke up the Southern Dixiecrats. They came out, and so it's politics is very simple. Despite all the highfalutin strategy that goes into it, he who gets the most people out to the polls win. I don't care.
Listen,
If
David Lyons
mm-hmm.
said that to me, and it's the truth. I tell you, David, my local. That's why politics is local truth. He was like, because he used to, because he was he was him and Bilal and those guys. He didn't get along in council, and they were always trying to get rid of him. But he was got. I only need one vote, Chris. If I get that one vote, if I win by one vote, that means I won. And it's the truth, though. You just gotta win. It don't matter.
Yeah,
Right?
God rest his soul too. We were never political allies at the very long. But anyway, David, you could figure out his number. He could win a ward race because it was a low turnout in
Yep.
ward years, but he couldn't win citywide. He
Nope.
never put together enough of a coalition to win citywide because he just didn't have that kind of appeal.
He didn't have it.
Yeah. So politics is a very simple thing. When you get to the brass tacks of it, it's the most votes out to the polls wins. It's not pretty. It's whether or not you have an organization that can do it. And so they out organized us. And so that's why I said I see some of the challenges in the old Democratic coalition is that we forgot the poor.
Yep.
When we say the poor doesn't vote, there's a reason why. If you're not addressing their concerns, they have no reason to vote.
Yes. And listen, that's why I take it back to Hillary and those Bernie people. All they had to do was, I hate you, Bernie. You're a socialist. But go ahead and be vice president. We'll unify the party and we'll go ahead and address it. But it seemed to me like they just did not want to do it. But before I go, I want to ask you two things. One, because we were talking about politics and this Voting Rights Act redistricting thing. I'm torn on that because to me, I feel like the Democrats were asleep at the switch. Even with this Project 2025 stuff, they saw it coming. But if Mr. Mayor, if I'm driving a car, I see a huge pothole, I ain't got to drive into it, right? I can do something about it. And this is why they did not do nothing about it.
Sometimes especially in control of the government. So that's why elections do matter, because when you got control of the apparatus of the government, you can do some things. When you're on the opposition looking out, you're in survival mode.
That's
And so, I even look at the kind of money that Trump and them have raised. He got a tremendous amount. He ain't spending none of it because he's money. But he's got
money. At that second inauguration, every major corporation came to kiss the ring. All of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's what. Listen, whoever's in power going to get the benefit of that. So Trump maxed out on it. I mean, it's kind of easy to say, how do you play defense and offense at the same time? It's difficult. It's very difficult. So you got to watch the government on when you're in the opposition. And I spent some time in the opposition. I tell you, even on the local level.
Yes.
You have to be, Mayor Bose. I always try to be a gentleman in politics, and sometimes that's very hard to do. Mm-hmm. But you got to be who you are. Yeah. And so, when we weren't always supportive of the Bose administration, you'd be diplomatic, but you don't have. We had the vote, so some things they couldn't do. But she had control of the government,
Mm-hmm.
so she could spend, and she make whatever she had to do. We might if stuff that required a vote, we could block it, but she
Right.
still had the wheels of government.
Right.
And then our job was to figure out, and then we didn't have to figure it out much because you end up, not a that chapter in Irvington's history didn't end so well for her.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to figure out how we end up. How do you go on offense to take the mayor's race? And so, we spent a lot of time doing that, but a lot of stuff was challenging. We had to clean up going into that scenario. So it's the Democratic Party we're playing defense. We got to try to stop some of the worst stuff that Trump could do. And we are. I mean, there's some outside forces that are not officially part of the Democratic Party, but support something like Mark Elias and his group that have stopped Trump in the courts. A lot of people ain't following this stuff. A lot of that stuff he did with Doge got overturned. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he's lost all these state cases on the trying to take control of the elections. He
Well,
lost.
see, you took it there again. I've been talking trash on black lawyers for a minute, and they get mad about it because I was saying we need more Thurgood marshals, and you're right. In the courts, which is where the civil rights movement made their bones, right? You've got to be able to work it that way. And so, the Supreme Court decision, that's the highest court, but things have to get through that level. But there's battlegrounds that prevent the rise of this king or this fascist stuff. Like I said, the American system would have to be totally effed up for something like that to happen. But then also in terms of fighting things
Well,
legally,
listen,
Mayor Roz Baraka fighting Delaney Hall in the courts, which is what you got to do. Like you said, the
yeah,
banks.
so yeah, and going to that, then we have to make sure, we've got to pray and also do whatever we can do to stop LaMonica from that whole legal thing that she's going through. She's doing her best to fight it, but it's to me that's just like an aberration to have to go through all of that. But Trump's got a vengeance tour. He's going, I don't, it's you can't jaywalk if you're a Democrat if he knows about it because he's weaponized.
Yeah.
He's so focused on getting the people that got after him, he probably missing a lot of stuff.
Yes. Oh, see, but once again, that's some Andrew Jackson stuff.
His latest victim is what's the guy's name? Jack. Oh God, they prosecuted him. Oh, his first name is Jack. Is it not Smith? Is it? Oh God,
I'm not sure. But
yeah.
yes, but he's a petty type. Yes, he's petty dude. See, and I think that's what, like I said, we said about how he's pushing the envelope of the executive branch. I think that's what scares people the most. Because, like you said, it's one thing to have power and then have restraint and not use it. But then you got somebody giving power, they're going to go to the extent of that power. They can go as far as they go. You give them
No, he's
they
stretching.
run.
He's stretching it to no limits. If there's a gray area in the law and
Yeah.
the customs, he's going to say, look, ain't nothing that says I can. I'm going to try. Y'all challenge me in court. And that's what, so there's been a whole group of lawyers out there that have been doing that kind of work. Ryan Haygood, who runs New Jersey Institute of Social Justice, just left to become the president and CEO of the Southern Poverty Law Clinic. And I look for Ryan to be shaping. He started his career with the Thurgood Marshall, with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. So he has that civil rights bona fide in his background. So he's leaving the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice and going to the Southern. He's the one pressing for reparations in New Jersey.
You see my face, Mr. Mayor. I'm going back now to you and Bowers going out there to go help your boy Glenn Cunningham and his thing. I think that's what I want you to do. I want you consulting on finance, but man, you need to be out here leadership consulting these Democrats too, baby. Because they, picking up this Plattner dude and these guys, somebody with common sense needs to be in the room going, I don't know if you should be doing that. Where is this? Because it seems like they out of touch.
Plattner was an aberration. They cleaned that up with Troy Jackson now. But I think what happened with him, Trump, with Trump's trial and all that, and still made it to the White House. There are people wondering if a unpure candidate can survive that track. Let me tell you, you just never know with the American. I would never thought that after, and even in the first time when that guy did the interview with him, and he said you just grab him. I said, "Oh, that's so." It's and traditionally in America, look, what's the name was on the boat with a woman, Gary Hart.
Yep.
Hart, and his campaign was over. You
Yep.
know, Bill Clinton survived LaMonica Lewinsky, but that was an aberration. They made him look bad. He was docile while that was going
And
on.
listen, and really, America was going great under Bill Clinton, but they was going, screw that. We don't care about that. We got to get that guy out of here.
And that's what they said about Trump. You never know what the American public is going to do. So they went, and when Plattner began to unravel, I think some of his people thought the same thing. Yeah, the guy ain't perfect. He made some mistakes, but I think we can ride this storm. That's what they thought. And it ended up every day it was a new leak came out.
Yeah.
A new woman, a new this, a new that. So he couldn't survive it. And so,
well, I think that goes back to like picking him and also the thing with Trump with all those lawsuits. I think that, like you said, that they thought that it would smear him.
But not only lawsuits, they convicted Trump.
Yes. Oh no, see, but that to me was, this is what I mean. Me being in media, I really feel that old adage that there's no such thing as bad press is real. Because
he's the victim. He said that they weaponized the Justice Department against me, and a lot of people bought that.
Yes. And then also that thing about the women. Listen, and I've been saying this for a minute, and people don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. You would have thought that white women would have turned against him, but they didn't. They voted for Trump in mass. The majority of them in each of his wins has been white women.
I could not even figure that out. I said this
because it used to always be women and minorities, right? But women went white women. And when they say women, they went white women. White women went this way. Everybody else went this way. And the white women have stayed over there. And so my last thing I want to talk to you about, because we don't want to hear is this. With these things coming back, and the further away we get from things, civil rights and whatever, I don't want to say it's nostalgia or people forget, but that's one of the problems with human nature, right? We forget things. I'm concerned about this desire. It seems like there's a desire, because like I said, you got the outside forces of this right-wing conspiracy trying to roll everything back and push us back. But then within us, our own ranks, you got people who seem like they have a nostalgia for segregation. And I'm concerned that there's this thing for us to segregate ourselves. And I'm saying we should not be the ones resegregating ourselves. Am I wrong?
I think that there are two dynamic issues that flow with that. I think one is, if you look at Black and brown communities, they already segregated. In New Jersey, the kids go to more segregated schools than they did.
That is real life facts.
Now the question is, do you stop me when I want to go into another community? Do I have freedom of movement? And as long as people have that, where you choose to live, if you want to live among your own people, I find nothing wrong with that, as long as we are able to maintain a decent quality of life. Right. And so, so I think, segregation by the government is what's wrong. If we decide, people do live where they're most familiar with. Listen, there are Irish communities, there are Italian communities, there are Jewish communities, there's African American communities, and there's nothing wrong with that. As long as the government doesn't take official action. If I decide I want to put my business over here, or I want to live over here, it does not become both governmental, and the culture stops me from doing it. That we have so much of a racist intent culturally that we stop people from freedom of movement, that not be able to go. But if people choose to, and more cases than not, many people do. Like, if, for instance, I had a major debate when I was mayor. I was president of the Urban Mayors, and we were talking about there used to be under code, a Council of Affordable Housing, this concept where suburban communities would transfer their obligation to do affordable housing.
Affordable housing. Yep, they would sell it off, right?
So they said, well, so they asked us, was we again, what wasn't that, creating segregation? I said, I don't have time to talk theoretics. I'm the mayor of a city where people need housing.
Right.
And you're going to give me some money to create housing, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. Now,
Right.
the NAACP, and was a member, still support the NAACP, but there were some members that said, no, so I said, okay. They got mad at me about this too, but I said, well, how many people under COA that were black that got a chance to move in the suburbs? So people forget it's not based on race. That thing is really based on income. They want to know what your income is. They don't ask you your race. And so there are poor people that can't afford to live in certain suburban areas too, that grew up there and they want to live there. Well, who would you pick to live there? You would pick somebody from the community to live there, but nobody had a number of how black families had moved to the suburbs. And so the other debate that happens with that is, if we're able to move there, that's fine. If the school system is better and kids are performing, they get a better opportunity. That's a wonderful thing. Now, my argument also was, if you talk to the average person and you have an extended conversation, you dethrone their social network. My doctor is here. I'm moving out there. My my social network, my family and friends are here, but I live out there. Do I have the transportation situation in the densely populated urban area? We have buses, cabs, and now they got Uber and Lyft and all that. But back, so
once again, Mr. Mayor, you proved me right, because I'm smiling because you talk about nuance in a way that makes it accessible. I mean, I get nuance anyway, right? Right? But the way you talk about it is nuanced, and you're talking about it in that nuanced way that a lot of people in public position, they don't know how to do, right? They don't know how to explain it. They don't know how to put it in terms.
Place of worship, their person's place of worship is over here. Now am I going to switch? How about there's none over here for me to go to?
No, and you bring it back to real people. And because listen, I was thinking what you just said, that HUD is doing that with these Section 8 vouchers. And because I know people who used to live in Crescent Lane in Irvington, down in Edison now, right? Living down in Edison and happy to be, out of Crescent Lane. And then Crescent Lane being redeveloped because HUD said we're getting out of the affordable housing business, right? But the point you're making, like I said, and to me, that's happened to a lot of these communities, the projects and whatever. People was getting that vouchers, they moved them. And when you can take that voucher and go from here to Arizona if you want, people have been doing that, right? And that happened with the black community in New Orleans.
If it works for them, that's a wonderful thing. But I just knew when you talk to real people, they were like, I don't necessarily want to move. I want something nice right here.
Facts.
So this is an emerging business opportunity, because I've talked to some even elder middle class people who have money. Nobody's building what they call them adult communities for that targeting African Americans that are in urban settings. Because, like I said, a lot of the people they aged out. They may have been teachers. They sold their house. And they say, well, I don't really want to move that far away from the community, but I got no choice because there's no facilities here for me to live in.
Right, no options.
Yes. So I'm forced to move out, but I would have loved to have a nice place in the town that I was, that I go to my church is here, my beautician is here, I know I shop around here. My small little, the older people to joke and said, my few friends I have left.
Well, listen, I'm smiling because I talk about nuance, but I'm giving you credit and props again because you really did put it in perspective. Because like I said, there's things I just don't like the idea, right? But then when you add the nuance and you get the shading and meaning, that even though I don't like it, there's reasons why I don't like it, rubbing me the wrong way, even if I can't really focus on them at that moment. But then also in terms of how real people do it. To me, I think that's always been your greatest thing. You talk about people having the common touch. and be like you mentioned, Bill Clinton. And people would tell you he walk up and everybody he could get along with anybody, and he's a Southern
Oh,
white
yeah.
dude.
No, Clinton had that.
And to me,
Mike Steele and I went to a meeting at the Clinton White House, right, while Mike was mayor. And so I'm gonna tell you, I don't know if they briefed him, but he came in the room. He was late, first of all. The president gonna be late, but so we all sitting around a big table in the White House. So the president comes in. He walks down to shake everybody. And said, "You with Mayor Steele, right?" I guess they had a chart or something, but they know. But it's impressive because he knows how to smooth you.
yes,
He's a smoother. He know. But when you read the history of Clinton, he was the kind of guy when he met people in college, wherever he met them, he kept a little cue card on them. If he knew their birthday, so he would send them a note of when they graduated or whatever, or they're about to graduate. You see, he was a consummate politician of doing those niceties, those small things. So when he went national, it was easier for him to contact his college roommates and law school classmates and all that because
we call that networking. Yes, and that's what I mean about some people being cut out for public stuff. Like you're trying to get the common touch and the average guy. But by the same token, if you know, like you said, the politician, if you know, in my career I want to be in this spot, then you got to comport yourself knowing that I've got to cross these boundaries to get there. If you know one day I want to be mayor of a town, you got to go, well, I got to act like a mayor. I can't get caught doing this and that and the other.
I always taught to comport yourself in the job that you want, not that the job that you have.
Facts.
If you comport yourself to the job that you want.
Oh, listen, I'm smiling too because we talk about successors and predecessors. Man, I'm smiling now because I always felt like when I was coming to Irvington that there was a lot of people who wanted to be you, Mayor Smith. I'm saying, yeah, I want to be Wayne Smith, right? And it was funny to me because I really, and I still feel that way. And they wanted to be Wayne Smith, right? I mean, and whatever their perception of you was, and also having seen you in action, they really, really wanted to be you. And it's funny. It was funny to me to watch them try to be like you. Because like I said, you either got it or you ain't got it. And if you ain't got it, I don't know if you can fake it. But I really feel like, and that's one of the reasons why I think people wanted to have that office. They wanted to be mayor. They wanted to be, right? They wanted to be the way that they saw you being in office. And imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, yes?
I appreciate that, Chris.
All right. And so before we go, I want you to give Miss Muhammad a plug again, and then also give your consulting firm a plug, because we came up with a lot of good ideas. I'm going to chop this up. I'll give it back to you and break it down. Yeah, so you're right. There are opportunities.
Try to put you two in touch with each other so you can bring her on.
Yeah, whenever you want. Listen. Yeah. I'm not going to say I'm an extension of you, but yes, if you ever feel like you got somebody you want to talk, bring them on. All right? Or you sit on front.
So if those who are interested in the project, The Point at Bergen and Rose, who might want to be interested in owning home, reach out for me at 973-204-5639. And I'll tell you, we haven't started. We're in the pre-development stage, but it's not too early to say I'm interested in it. And as we get more information available, you give us your contact information and we'll be in touch. Chris, thank you for this opportunity to talk about the public square. I've enjoyed it. It shows you I miss it just a little bit.
Well, no, because fish like to swim in water, Mr. Mayor. And and like I said, whatever it is, dude, you got it. And I'm glad that I have a platform where you can put it on display and you can, and once again, and more importantly for me, to share it with these people who desperately need to see what it looks like. Because there's a vacuum and a void in leadership, especially in the Democratic Party right now. And it's because cats don't know what they're looking for. And as I'm not sure you can vouch, but sometimes you don't know what you want until you see it. Here you go. Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Once you do your edits or whatever you're going to do, send it to me so I can make sure we get it out.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Listen, thank you very much for being on. I appreciate you. And, I'm going to put you on blast and put you out there.
All right.
And you're always welcome to come back. I'd like to have you back as many times as possible, personally. Right.
Just reach out whenever you're ready, like they did last time, and we'll put it together.
All right, no doubt.
Talk to you. Right now.
All right. And that was former Irvington, New Jersey Mayor Wayne Smith. I say, like I said, to me, Wayne Smith has it. Whatever it is, Wayne Smith had it. Ever since I first saw him, I think I saw him, I encountered him. I was doing a story, some freelance stuff out in like the State County, someplace, way away from Irvington when I first encountered him. Craig Stanley too, and he just popped like that because that's what it is. And so leadership is one of my pet peeves. Good leadership is at a premium, especially in the Black community. We need more good Black leaders, strong Black leaders. I mean, some strong and good. And that's what it is. That's why a lot of people like Trump. He projects that air of authority, whether you like it or not. And he's been doing some stuff with it. He had the power and he used it. I feel like Obama had power and didn't want to use it for whatever reason. Didn't use it to his fullest, or what it could have been done. I didn't get to that with Mayor Wayne Smith. I wanted to get to that with the reparations, about Trump doing reparations to those January 6th dude, but they can't give reparations to Black Americans, right? How he gonna set aside $1 billion for cats who attacked the U.S. Capitol, but the country can't find some money to pay back the descendants of people who never got paid for 400 years of free labor, right? But that's another show, another thing. Maybe get him back on here. And so once again, this is Chris Black. This is Eclipse Spotlight ES. I'm not sure what episode this is with Mayor Wayne Smith. I think I got 12 or 13. But yeah, I'm gonna have Wayne Smith back. I like Wayne Smith. I always did like him. He's a good leader. I'm glad he's involved in finance and money and talking money, because we do need that. We need to understand. When I say we, I mean Black Americans, but all Americans. We need to understand how business works and how finance works and how money interacts. And even though capitalism gets a bad name, we live in a capitalist society. And yeah, money don't solve everything, but it can help a brother out, yeah, or a sister. All right. So on Instagram is CB525. On YouTube is Chris Black. This is Eclipse Spotlight, Eclipse TV, ES. And check me out. You'll see it in the podcast in there, and it'll be the next episode. But thank you very much, Mayor Wayne Smith, for coming on, right? And doing some good stuff. Let's stop it. Ah, that's funny.